Welcome to the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Rosensweet, mom of 3 young people, peaceful parenting coach, and your cheerleader and guide on all things parenting. Each week, we'll cover the tools, strategies, and support you need to end the yelling and power struggles and encourage your kids to listen and cooperate so that you can enjoy your family time. I'm happy to say we have a great relationship with our 3 kids. The teen years have been easy and joyful, not because we're special unicorns, but because my kids were raised with peaceful parenting. I've also helped so many parents just like you stop struggling and enjoy their kids again. I'm excited to be here with you today and bring you the insight and information you need to make your parenting journey a little more peaceful. Let's dive into this week's conversation. Hey all, welcome back to another episode of the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. Today's episode is a coaching episode with Yvonne. Yvonne is the mom of 2 kids, a girl named Molly who's 7 and a boy named Fionntan who's almost 6. And this was a really interesting call because you will hear that we did not end up talking about her children that much. This is something that happens sometimes with coaching where we really need to focus on ourselves and doing the work that we need to do to give ourselves more compassion and to work on our self-regulation so that we can show up and be the parents that we want to be. It's less about our children than it is about ourselves. And this is one of those cases. I know that with some clients that I work with, it takes a few sessions and often they'll end up saying, this isn't even about my kids, this is just about me. So that's really sort of the theme of the work that Yvonne and I did together. Be sure to stick around until the end and you will hear her update and how she was able to put into practice some of the suggestions that I made and some of the things that we realized would be helpful for her. Also, you will hear her mention my newsletter and something that she learned that she found really helpful from one of my newsletters. Every week, my team and I send out value-packed newsletters with tips or strategies or reflections, things that you need exactly right now on your parenting journey. If you would like to receive my newsletter, you can go to sararosensweet.com/newsletter and sign up. I've had folks tell me that this is an email that they look forward to every week and they can't imagine ever unsubscribing because they just find it so motivating and helpful and great encouragement and great tools. So I hope to see your name pop up and I would love to show up in your inbox. So again, sararosensweet.com newsletter and you can sign up there for our Parenting Gold newsletter. Okay, let's meet Yvonne. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Sarah. How are you doing?
Good. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on it. And
I'm so glad.
You'll have to just see if you can understand all my accent. Yeah,
I love your accent.
God, not even talking for an hour.
I was just saying before we started recording that my ancestry is Irish, so it's nice to hear the Irish accent.
We could do a house swap.
Yeah, we'll have to talk off the recording about that. Okay, yeah. So can you just introduce yourself? You're in Ireland. We know that.
Yeah, I'm in Ireland. My name is Yvonne and I'm married to Tristan and I have a daughter, Molly. She's 7.5 and Fionntan he'll be 6 next month.
Okay. How can I support you today?
I think my main problem at the minute with Molly is her tendency to totally clam up. She won't really speak about what's annoying her and you won't find out what's annoying her until she explodes about something else. And then sometimes it might come out, but sometimes it might not. And, these tantrums, they can be epic and destructive. And now that I know a lot more about the benefit of crying and that release and everything, but this has only been I'm only new to peaceful parenting in the last year. And it's completely against how I was brought up in terms of definitely on my daddy's side, and even then, on my husband's side as well. With my mother, it's just like, right, that's enough.
That's right. Stop crying.
Yeah, stop crying. And even I remember, one time with my son, and he was just getting really angry, and my daddy turned around and was like, "I put a stop to that. Control that." I think it's hard for my parents' generation to show that emotion, and for that emotion to be okay, to be allowed out. It was like Irish, brought up Irish Catholic, repression, oppression.
Yeah.
And even we grew up in the Troubles in Northern Ireland. I don't know if you've seen Dairy Girls, the series Dairy Girls.
Yes, I have. Dairy Girls. I've seen a little of it. Yeah.
So she was in my year in school.
Okay.
So it was literally, my childhood, like adolescence. It's good because it shows how we were as teenagers, but what our parents went through.
The trauma.
And see that generational trauma, which is again something I need to. It's huge in Northern Ireland. And when Molly was born, I moved to Berlin, 4 months pregnant with my husband. We weren't planning on being pregnant. We were planning for a 2-year party, basically. And we moved 4 months pregnant. I didn't know anyone. Molly was born in January in Berlin.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
It was so grim. And I thought, so I come from, my mommy's one of 14, my daddy's one of 15. There's 51 children on one side and there's 48 on the other, with loads of, so I've got over 90 first cousins.
Oh my goodness.
And like hundreds of second cousins. And all the aunties, they're very maternal. And when I was in Berlin with Molly, I was so postnatally depressed. Didn't realize at the time, but I just...
So you were alone without your family, and you weren't, I'm sure that you loved having a baby, but it wasn't in your plans when you went to Berlin. So that's like a double whammy, right?
Yeah. And it was, I had nobody to interact with apart from Molly.
And babies aren't very good company.
No. And I closed off a lot of what she needed at that time. And then got pregnant with Fionntan when Molly was about 5 or 6 months. And we moved back to Bristol where we were living beforehand. And then that was great. But then obviously it was 2 under 18 months, not under like 15 months.
Wow.
And
Irish twins, as they call them.
Yeah, Irish twins. We had no family support. And Tristan, he got a new job and was working like all the hours. So I was really stressed and they didn't sleep or eat very well. And I didn't realize at the time, but I shouted so much, I screamed. And then Fionntan, he cried a lot. And Tristan too, my husband, he can get quite, about noise. He can't handle that noise. And so crying then, so Molly doesn't cry. So she doesn't cry very often at all. And I think that's pretty much a direct effect of those early years. When I think I didn't realise that, I thought I would scream and and then it was done. But, obviously all the reading that I'm doing now, I actually had to go to a homeopath for guilt because it was just...
I was going to ask you if so you recently found peaceful parenting in the last year. Have you been able to make some shifts in terms of your self-regulation? How much different are things today than they were in those difficult years? Is what I'm getting at, I guess.
I still find emotional self-regulation and my husband like hard and much, much better than I was. And even actually one of the mommies came in and was like, "Oh, Fionntan came in to me today and said that, oh, I'm just to let you know, I'm in a really bad mood." And he said that to one of the mom, I'm not cross with you, I'm just in a bad mood.
Oh, so he's picked up that picked up it's not, you didn't do anything to deserve this sort of thing. I'm just having a hard time.
Yeah. But because everything feels so new in that sense, I nearly feel overwhelmed with the information sometimes.
Yeah, you got to take just a little. I think one of the mistakes people make when they're doing peaceful parenting is first of all, they think there's this perfection that they're heading towards. So that's a first mistake that people make a lot with peaceful parenting, is thinking that they are holding themselves to the standard of perfection. Once they learn that it's damaging to their kids and to their relationship to yell, they think, okay, I've got to never yell again. That's not realistic because we're human and we get frustrated, right? And we have bad days. And self-regulation doesn't mean that you never get frustrated and upset. It means that you try to calm yourself when you do get upset, but it doesn't mean that you can do it perfectly. There will be times where your resources are low. And then the important thing is repair, right?
So I do a lot of repair.
Good.
I do. Yeah. No, so that was, I think that was probably the biggest thing that I took, the initial biggest thing that I took away from the peaceful parenting thing was repair. I was like, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have done that. And it's not okay to do that. And I'm really trying.
That's important. So things have improved from your first difficult years when you were struggling with 2 little ones and postpartum depression and isolation. Like, of course you were having a hard time. Have you been able to forgive yourself give yourself some compassion for that hard time that you had?
Yeah, more than I was. I mean, there was nights where I was going to bed every night, bawling my eyes out at just, at things that I'd done and I'd said and I'd reacted. And actually, I think probably more because now at the age where I see those characteristics in Molly and Fionntan, and I think it just makes me really sad that, yeah.
Yeah. You know what, honey? You did the best you could with what you had at the time.
Yeah.
And you have to forgive yourself for not knowing what you know now before you knew it.
Yeah, I know.
So you said you've gotten good at repair, which is great. Have you ever had any conversations with your kids about those hard years?
No, I think I tried to one time with Molly. Said I was really lonely in Berlin, but then I think I just stopped because I wasn't sure how much, I didn't want to make her feel guilty or.
So I wouldn't talk to her about it until you feel pretty compassionate with yourself, because the conversation you want to have isn't about her forgiving you. That's not appropriate, right? Like you're the grown up and you're the leader. The conversation you want to have is opening the door for her to share with you how hard that was for her when she was little and you yelled a lot. And you might not be ready for that conversation, because I don't want it to be a conversation where you're putting your feelings on her, looking for some sort of forgiveness or absolution, right? You have to, if you want to have that healing conversation with her, it has to come from a place of you've already forgiven yourself. And, it's not like there's going to be a point where like, okay, 100% forgiven, but that you've gotten to a more peaceful place with feeling forgiving about yourself. And then you go to her and you say something like, sweetheart, when you were little, I had a really hard time managing myself and managing my feelings. And I yelled at you a lot. And that was probably really scary for you. And I just want you to know that if you ever want to tell me about how that felt for you, or if you're feeling still a little bit angry with me or scared, you can tell me about how you feel and I'll listen. And those feelings are normal. And of course you would feel that way, right? You want to have that sort of when you feel ready, and it might not be for a little while, but that's a conversation that might be helpful for you to have with her, where she might even be able to cry about it, and say, yeah, you were really scary, or I don't know what she would say, but if she could cry about it, that might help with some of that freeze that she gets into, right?
Yeah, she frees and fawn. Yeah, whereas her brother fights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say she flight, freezes and fawn.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so her younger brother, he's all out with his emotions, but he's angry type, but he would cry about it instantly, and it's almost done.
Yeah, he can process his feelings more easily by crying through them.
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of roughhousing with Molly.
Good, that's great.
Yeah. So I know that that's an important release, and because she wasn't crying, I would do that as much as possible. We do a lot of bouncing on the trampoline and stuff.
Great. And for anyone who's listening, when a child has a hard time crying or gets stuck in either anger or gets frozen, it partly because it feels too scary for them to go to the crying, tender, vulnerable places, right? And so we can create more safety. And I don't mean like literal safety, but more connection and closeness, and help her feel a little bit more willing to show that vulnerable side of her through laughter, which is what Yvonne was just saying, what you were just saying, Yvonne, through laughter and roughhousing, which creates that safety and connection. So that's fantastic that you're doing that with her.
Yeah. But I mean, she's also been constipated for years as well, which is also a sign of holding in emotions and holding. And also dinner times are an ongoing bone of contention.
Well, let's get back to those in a second, but I just want to talk a little bit more about her having a hard time crying and freezing. Have you ever talked to her about how it's important to cry, and that that's good and healthy and it can help her feel better?
Yeah.
What does she say?
She kind of clams up, and if she falls quite badly, she could get a massive knock, and kind of if you cry, or if something.
So even when she hurts herself, it's hard for her to cry.
Yeah. And other things then, something that's not physical, she would just not cry. And I said, whenever you keep it in your body, then it stays there and it gets bigger. And if you don't talk about it, or if you don't let it out, then it does get bigger. So that actually whenever I was younger, I didn't know it at the time, but I had anxiety, stomach cramps. I mean, they didn't know what it was for years. I was the third girl. My daddy desperately wanted a boy, and it was kind of, it wasn't quiet
It
about
was
it.
not a secret, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a secret. Yeah, and I think I had a lot of. They didn't know what it was for years. I now realize it to be anxiety. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of it, and I'm really worried that Molly will follow the same path.
Mm-hmm.
That intergenerational trauma as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of the work of ending intergenerational trauma is doing your own healing, which it sounds like you're doing,
Yeah,
right? Like when we help our children all the time by doing our own work and our own healing on ourselves.
yeah. Still have so much to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think sometimes I do find that whenever I'm, you always talk about you're hijacked, you're emotionally hijacked, and that's
Mm-hmm.
a, yeah, I think there were so many, because I'm one of six, and so our house was just mental. And, there was always some kind of, right, okay, get ready, get out the door,
Right.
so I think there were so many emergencies that I think I have to override so many emergencies that,
Yeah.
yeah, it just takes a lot.
Well, it sounds like your nervous system, it gets easily elevated because of the childhood experience that you had.
Yeah, I think I'm really worried that, well, I think my infant are the same.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that you have a good awareness of your own nervous system and when you start to feel agitated?
Yeah, I can tell, but then I find it really hard to get out of. I kind of go, I know I'm in a bad mood. I'm in a really bad mood. I'm really stressed, but then don't take the steps to come out of it.
And why not, do you think?
Well, growing up in our house, there's so many of us. Maybe both. The most dangerous thing that you can look like you're doing is that you're doing nothing. Because
Mm-hmm.
anybody suspected that you might be resting or doing something, it was, you got put straight to work. Tristan always says that I don't know how to relax very easily. He's like, sit down, going, but the kitchen has to be cleaned and the uniforms have to be done and lunches have to be made, and so I think even that, so even just tonight, work was just crazy busy, and then there was the hit one, and then there was another thing, and then I was getting ready for me to come in, and even in that, I was going, just calm, just take a
Mm-hmm.
minute, and then I actually laid down for I think a minute and a half and put some lavender on, which was great, and then I kind of got up, but I have a really hard time remembering to do that.
Yeah. Well, maybe that'll be one of the assignments that I would like to give you between now and the next time we talk is
Oh,
to check in with your nervous system throughout the day. Maybe do you think you could try setting a timer on your phone for every hour to 2 hours, maybe every hour, and just check in with yourself and see if you can think about sort of state you're feeling in. Like, are you feeling calm and connected? So periodically, every hour, maybe throughout the day, when your phone goes off, check in with yourself. How is my body feeling? What are the stories that I'm telling myself about this moment? Sometimes that stress thing, like I know sometimes I'll go out for a dog walk and then on the way back, I'll start thinking about all the things I have to do that day. And I'll start to stress myself out thinking about all of the things I have to do. And then I have to give myself a little antidote, tell myself a different story, which is there's enough time in the day to do all the things that you need to do. You always manage to get the things done, right? And just kind of telling yourself a different story instead of, I'll never get it all done. It's okay, you can handle it. So throughout when that timer goes off, how's your body feeling? Just sort of check in with yourself. How's your breathing? How's your heart rate feeling? How are your, shoulders? Just do like a little bit of a body scan and check in with yourself. And then also I want to give you a tool because it sounds like you, because of your busy life now, and then also how you were raised, it sounds like you have a hard time getting and staying in, at least even for a little bit, staying in that calm and connected state. So can you think of a time, either make something up, think of something that sounds pleasant, or think of a real time where you have felt like calm and serene, even if it's just for like 2 minutes, just like a moment where you feel calm and serene.
After sex.
All right. After sex, lying in your bed. Okay. So, or wherever you are, I guess, not to assume that you're in your bed. So come up with a visual of your setting. How does your body feel? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? As many senses as you can involve in finding this like 2-minute calm and serene place for yourself. And I want you to use that as an anchor throughout the day. So when you're feeling like things are starting to, feel like just too much throughout the day, try and bring yourself back to that anchor.
Yeah.
And see if that helps.
Yeah, I think I might go for the beach instead. Go for
Okay.
a walk on the
Okay.
Yeah.
Walk on the beach. So, really maybe after our call, or maybe when you get a chance, write that out for yourself.
Yeah.
What does it sound like, feel like, look like? How do I feel in my body? What are the stories I'm telling myself for that walk on the beach? And then use that as an anchor throughout the day when you need to get yourself back to calm, because that's going to help you sort of tone your nervous system a little bit. So checking in with where you are, where you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Are you feeling like, stressed, anxious, or maybe you're feeling like kind of low and no energy, but then sort of check in with that place where you feel like calm and connected.
Yeah.
And then I think, continuing to do that work around forgiving yourself. And, we ended up talking a lot about you, which is fine. And that's a huge part of parent coaching. No, it really is. Like, sometimes I talk to, usually after a couple of sessions with private clients, they say, this isn't even really about my kid. It's really about me. Right. Yeah. And in a lot of ways it is. And the way that you're going to be able to show up the best for your daughter and your son is if you can increase your skills in terms of that self-regulation and the, creating more safety for Molly to be able to, hopefully cry. Does she cry if she watches any like sad movies or anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe like lots of sad movies. Torture the girl with lots of sad movies.
Yeah.
Because if we cry about anything, we're emptying our emotional backpack. If we cry about anything.
Yeah, I can think of quite a few.
All the Disney movies.
80s films. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great idea, actually.
Okay. Yeah. And, I think it's just, we have to remember it's a work in progress.
Yeah. I think that's what I struggled with. I just felt that I got everything so wrong. And yeah.
Well, maybe you did, but you know what? Anyone in your position would have had the same background and the same life experience, probably would have had the same difficult start.
Yeah.
And really, like, the only place you're going to get to where you want to go is by forgiving yourself and using that, that compassion for yourself to keep moving forward with your kids.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
We can't be compassionate for our kids and show up with empathy and connection if we don't have that for ourselves.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing, actually. Empathy is I have a really hard time with that. And actually with my sister, we were talking about it as well. And I think we weren't brought up with much empathy.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
No, it was like, right, get on with it. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're grand. You're grand. Come on.
Well, there was a certain amount of survival that had to happen in your childhood, right? And when you're in survival mode, it's pretty hard to be empathetic.
Yeah. So yeah, really trying to work on empathy.
Good. Well, and having empathy for yourself is a place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, we'll talk in a couple of weeks, see how things go.
Sarah, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Really so wonderful to meet you. Hi, Yvonne. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm well. So how have things been since we last spoke?
They've been better. Checking in with myself. I had to do it every couple of hours initially was a bit too much. And I found that was stressing me out. So I put it down at longer intervals. But what I noticed and what I've kind of been conscious of with that is, my inner dialogue.
Yeah.
Right. What am I telling myself about how I'm feeling or my kids or my husband and even if I find it hard to change, just catch myself. Just
that's the first step, right?
Listen to that.
The first
voice.
step is being aware of what our inner dialogue is. The
Yeah.
second step, what, can be a little harder, is replacing it with a different story, or accepting that it is that way, right? I guess you don't always have to replace it. I think you can have like an inner dialogue and like, I'm having a really hard time right now, and just give yourself some compassion if you can't change anything. That's great that you've been more aware of the dialogue in your head. And how do you think that's helped you?
It stops me going down like that rabbit hole of either self-pity or, kind of anger directed towards either my husband or children, or, that kind of, just kind of taking a step back, right? Okay. Because once, you can go down there, it can be quite hard to get back sometimes.
My mentor, Dr. Laura Markham, calls that gathering kindling for a bonfire.
I listened to that podcast that you did with, it was two parent. It was a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember he came back and he was like, I love that, Sarah.
Yeah.
He's telling friends. Yeah. I actually told that to my husband as well after listening to that. But you're absolutely right. Oh yeah. I was kind of taking it in relation to events that were happening.
I think it's both things. I think it's letting things build up, right?
Yeah.
It's letting things build up, whether it's little events that you haven't processed or whether it's your own thought process of a negative spiral. I think it can be both things. But either way, if you're not aware that there's a bonfire being built, then it goes up into giant flames, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I find that nighttime is bedtime can be when I'm just at that point of bonfire because I'm finding it really difficult to make some space for myself because there's just seems I'm like running on the treadmill.
Is there any way that you could change that? Like, so you recognize that if we have a trigger, and sometimes they're avoidable and sometimes they're unavoidable, but is there any way you could grab, 15 minutes before dinner to just like go for a walk around the block or go into your room, and, even 5 or 10 minutes where you could just say, okay, right, mom's going to take a little mommy time out and just do a meditation or something for 5 or 10 minutes just to ground yourself?
This is exactly what I need to do. And I think because I am quite thingly not against, but I don't like them having screens, but actually because my husband works from home and I know that if I go into say I go down to lie down, I don't want to give him the TV. If they start fighting and he's in a meeting, then it's not, but actually, maybe 20 minutes screen time.
Yeah.
So that it could be an avoidable bonfire.
Yes. If he's not available, if he is available, great. They have dad time for that 20 minutes before dinner. But if he's not available, really, like there's 20 minutes of screen is not going to be the end of the world if it buys you some more patience, right?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I do need to, because they usually don't during the week. And actually it's not so bad.
Yeah. When my boys were little, well, when my middle son was a baby and my older son was 3.5, I just needed that 20 minutes like every day. So I put the baby down for a nap, and then I'd let my older son watch one episode of this show called Maisie the mouse that he quite liked. And I would just drink a cup of tea, read a magazine, just for that 20 minutes. And I needed that. I needed that little break where nobody was asking me for anything. And it was quiet.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of like meditation before bed and kind of breathing, but we'll usually fall asleep to it. But I think more mindfulness would definitely help that breather, because it is just like I work in the same school as the kids. So I get up in the morning and they're there and they come into school with me, and then as soon as I finish work, they're there and I bring them home.
It's a lot.
There.
So checking in with yourself has led to some really great things, right? It's led you to realize that you've often got this inner monologue that's not helping you, that you're going to be able to be aware of that, and that also that you have limits like all humans, And that,
Uh-huh.
rather than gathering kindling, you're going to just take this little break that you need. So that's awesome. What about giving yourself more compassion? How did you go on that?
Yeah, well, actually, the weekend that I just came back from, I think that was, new people that you met, and I get really energized with, meeting people, and do you know, having people say, "Oh God, you're great! You're so much fun, and you're," and I was like, "Yes, I am," but it's such an unnatural thing to accept a compliment and say, okay, so like that kind of cultural thing too of, well, no, that's just not good enough. No, oh, you look beautiful. Oh my God, no, gee, are you crazy? I look a mess, and it's it's been culturally ingrained to not think that you're not allowed to think that you're great.
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
maybe for you, self-compassion is going to start by accepting the compassion or the good vibes or energy that other people are giving you to start with, at
yeah,
least.
yeah, and no, but even before that too, I was, yeah, things of, God, I'm really tired, and say, oh, actually, the kitchen's a tip. Oh, all right, okay, sack it. I'll sit down and
Good.
mm, and actually, my husband and I don't watch very much TV at all. I don't find that a kind of relaxing way to spend. But actually, we were watching Stranger Things together, and that was really nice. So it was a nice
Nice.
time, yeah, to connect with the series. And
Well, I just made a connection with you were talking about when you were a child, no one could ever see you resting or not doing anything, or
yeah,
that would lead to somebody saying, go, do this job or do this chore. What's wrong with you just sitting there? You mentioned that. And so you do have
yeah,
some blocks about rest, it sounds like, but
yeah,
that's great that you've been letting yourself have a little bit more rest and relaxation and not doing the kitchen if you're feeling tired. You can wait till the next day.
yeah, absolutely. But it's still quite hard, and even my poor husband, if he, yeah, it's this thing if there's stuff to be done and somebody's taking a rest. My husband, it's like daggers. What are you doing resting when they're?
If you don't meet your own needs, or if we don't meet our own needs, it's really triggering to see other people meeting their needs.
Yes. Oh my God. Oh, that's it. Wow. Yes. Actually, I think that's exactly what it is.
So
So what?
take a page out of his book instead of getting annoyed with him. Oh, he's meeting his needs. I should meet my needs as well.
Oh my God. That's actually probably going to change our marriage, Sarah.
Actually, could hang out another shingle, marriage counselor as well as
Yeah.
parenting coach.
Oh
Okay, so how
wow.
have these shifts well, actually, one more thing I want to check in with you. Were you able to use your calming anchor that we talked about, picturing yourself, I think it was on a beach? First you
Yeah.
said after sex, but then you changed it to
Yeah. Yeah.
to having it be on the beach. Either one, wherever you feel calm and
Yeah.
connected is great.
Yeah. 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 I have orange essential oil that
Nice.
I drip it on my clothes, and then I can stuff it in, and it helps also. But to do that, you have to take a deep breath in, and you kind of do it a few times. So that, yeah, and itself, we kind of associate that with the
Love it.
anchoring.
Love it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and
Sensory things are so powerful for anchoring us ourselves in calm. And I love that you found that the
mm,
drops of essential oil. It's beautiful.
and they're really small too to carry around.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm, mm.
Okay, so now the big question is, how have all of these shifts that you've started to make, if it has made you show up differently in your parenting, how so?
I'm less quick to get annoyed with it. Actually, just this evening, and was it from one of the ones one of your emails? I can't remember if it was the weekend reflection or the one before that was saying about, oh, my son's like he's been really quick to anger, to go straight to hitting, aggression, and I'm like, oh, you must have been really mad, and it was just that.
I think it was probably the newsletter about empathic limits.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so I even find with that, instead of kind of going straight to, why did you hit your sister? Like stuff. And like, oh God, you must have been really mad to do that. And then he went off in a huff upstairs to his room. And I knew that Molly was, I think she was okay. But I think he needed, because it was just before dinner time too. And I was like, oh God, I don't want dinner time. I'm just too tired tonight after the camping weekend to deal with a kind of dinner upset. And so I went upstairs to him and I did some kind of play or like stay listening. And he went up to his bed and he's like, I'm going up, but you're not coming. Oh, no, I do want you in my room. It's like, oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll just kind of stay here. And then, okay, well, you can stay here. He so desperately didn't want me to go.
But he was being prideful, maybe? Like he was trying to be too cool or something?
Yeah. And then he's like, oh no, actually, no, don't need. And then we ended up having a real laugh.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really nice, actually. It was really a real connection moment, whereas it could have just been he stormed off and I could have done, shouted or whatever, but yeah, instead. And then again too, when he was getting changed for, I needed to get changed out of his uniform or something, like I could change out of your uniform and he didn't want to. And it was just the same thing too, where just playful.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wore a Thor suit to dinner.
So I think you're right in that it would make you less reactive to be practicing more self-compassion, giving yourself more breaks, being more aware of what your needs are and what's going on. So that's great.
Yeah, the playful thing has been really, I know you talk about that a lot. Sometimes I'm really not feeling very playful. And yeah, even actually tonight when he was brushing his teeth, I was just really tired and, just kind of thinking at one point going, dear sweet Lord, does it always have to be? Could you not just do it? But then at that moment, yeah, again, I had some kind of playful moment and I did a reluctant laugh and then we were cool. So
good.
But yes, yeah, sometimes though, I'm just
like, it is hard to get playful when we're tired at the end of the day. I guess you could get playful about being tired is one thing you could do. Is like lie down. You're gonna have to put yourself to bed tonight. I'm too tired. Good night, and pretend to snore or something like that, and lighten the mood a bit.
Oh, I must remember to do that actually, because it does that. Oh my God, actually, yeah. If I do the 15 or 20 minutes before dinner and then do some playful tiredness, it could, make a real difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good, Yvonne. I'm glad to hear that things are moving in a really good direction for you. And yeah, it was funny. I can't remember if you said this while we were recording last time or after we stopped recording, but you said something like, oh, I just talked about myself the whole time. And I assured you that was really normal. And that there are lots of parents that I work with who we don't really even talk about their children that much. Sometimes some clients, it's like straight up tools and strategies. And with some clients, it's really talking about like their internal process and what's going on for them, because that's the support that you need sometimes to be the parent that you want to be. Is you need to have more resources. You need to be not so hard on yourself. And that's what makes all the difference. It's not, not as much of the like sort of strategies for getting kids to cooperate. It's really doing that inner work.
Yeah, and I think I'm not sure if I was saying what I'm doing only since having children. I feel like I have embarked on a journey, which I wish I'd done about 10 or 15 years before, because I would have had the headspace for it. Whereas with children, it's not problems, but any work that you need to be done on yourself is reflected right back at you at your children.
That is exactly it. They're like the mirrors that show us the work we need to do. And you know what, though? A lot of people that I speak with say, I did so much work on myself before I had kids. And then I had kids and I realized I had a lot more work to do on myself. Yeah. And you have to really, truly forgive yourself for not knowing what you know, knowing then what you know now. And, you're doing it. You're doing it now.
Yeah, I know. And actually some of the problem the same with Molly about her holding a lot of things and that I didn't have the help with, or I didn't recognize, or it wasn't recognized because I didn't know. Or I just hope now that knowing what I know, that I can kind of draw it out of her and give
I
her the
think,
tools.
yeah, I think you will be able to. And we can't overestimate how much doing our own work on ourselves actually helps our kids too.
Yeah. Oh no, 100%. Actually, I
Mm-hmm.
know. Yeah, things that I've done. I did was it an inner child workshop, and then had Molly infant, and then their inner child, they ended up cracking like 20 eggs in a bag of flour all over my head, um, on the
That's
beach.
interesting.
Yeah, and I think it was just about, just having fun in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
which I hadn't been doing with them for a while. So yeah, they've been asking ever since to do that. So
Sounds messy.
it was very, very, very messy. But I think sometimes I get a bit overwhelmed by the amount of work that I feel like I have to do myself.
One step
And
at a
that,
time, baby.
yeah, yeah, I know.
And if you're hard on yourself, that's going to set you back, really and truly.
Yeah.
I have someone in my membership. I did a private session with her, and she had wanted to know why peaceful parenting wasn't working for her. And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, "Well, I still get frustrated with my children. I've been doing this for 2 years, and I still get frustrated and annoyed with them. And sometimes I end up yelling at them." And I said, "Sounds like your expectations for yourself are a little bit high there, darling."
Yeah.
And I encouraged her to post in our membership group, "Does anyone else get frustrated and annoyed with their children and sometimes still yell at them?" And I knew what the answer was going to be, right? Like I knew that there would be 20 people saying, "Yes, I do, I do, I do." And she was so shocked, that feeling of not being alone, right? That she didn't have to be perfect. And of course, we do our best, but we're not perfect. And then we repair. And she realized that she started, like within a week, she started being easier on herself. And it actually made her less reactive, just being easier on herself, because she said she realized she was going into every interaction thinking, "I can't yell. I can't let them know I'm frustrated." And that itself was making her so tense that she would end up yelling at them, because she was like, going in with this standard of perfection that was impossible. And so just like reminding herself, you don't have to be perfect, giving herself some compassion, she was actually less reactive than she was before.
So this when I feel like I get annoyed is that if I'm asking my infant to do something, and I've used the tips of, I'm not shouting from them across the room. I'm going over to them, but that they're not listening. Would you suggest saying, because I do say, okay, guys, I'm getting a bit frustrated. I'm feeling a bit frustrated now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that,
That's fine.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the problem comes in if we're blaming our children for our feelings, like, "Oh, you're making me so frustrated." I would not recommend saying
Oh,
that, but saying
no,
like,
no,
"I'm starting to feel really frustrated because we need to get out the door and nobody is getting ready," is
oh, yeah,
is
that's,
d- totally different. So that's fine. We're not, we
okay.
don't,
That's,
we don't want to give our children the impression that we don't have any feelings. We just don't want to make them responsible for our feelings.
yes, no, 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 I get that. It's the wording. I remember that when I did a parenting course before, and it was the wording of you giving them choices, but getting them to do the choice that you want. And it took me about 5 or 6 weeks to get the word. And every time I would come back every week saying, okay, so I said it like this and this, but it didn't work. And she went, no, it's this way. But okay, right. Okay, come on. I said it like this. She went, no, I'm all right. Okay, I'm getting it. So it takes a while for the wording to
Yeah.
deprogram the wording to
Yeah.
come in. Yeah, it does work. I did find that one. I can't remember it now because they were toddlers at the time, but really, really worked.
Good. Thank you so much, Yvonne.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on and for saving my marriage.
Well, I'm afraid I can't take credit for that, but I'm glad that was like a helpful aha moment for you. Sometimes, I'm sure you've heard stuff like that before, but you have to hear things at the right time when you're open to hearing them and when it is meaningful for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That was just before we came on the call. And yeah, totally, because he was knackered and did need to rest.
Yeah.
So yes,
Good.
thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I will speak to you soon.
Yeah, keep me posted.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found this conversation insightful and exactly what you needed in this moment. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Remember that I'm rooting for you. I see you out there showing up for your kids and doing the best you can. Sending hugs over the airwaves today. Hang in there. You've got this.